Traveling across the city today is not how it used to be 5 years ago. I remember going to school every day along a fixed route. The view I saw back then was much different. A lot more of the city could be seen. There used to be many traffic circles built at most crossroads, and on these traffic circles were placed massive sculptures made of stone, metal, or concrete. The traffic circles of Vadodara were well-known landmarks used often by the people to navigate through the city. I remember looking at the sculptures with wonder as my school bus passed by every morning. Today, however, the sculptures I was so familiar with cannot be seen as I am driven down the same road. The city seems alien to me. Have those massive structures flown away, or am I the one flying over them?
जा चुके वो डाल गिर गई है वो पाल चढ़ गए हैं वो पेड़ कट गया है ये शहर बट गया है ये शहर बट गया
Baroda was urbanizing around the 80s and 90s. I think this was also perhaps a historic first, that we found that artwork began to find a place in a traffic island, which was a bit funny, but then it was also a way in which the new realities of a fast growing city is being addressed.
Traffic circle becomes a very interesting, public space in which a sculpture can be placed. Also, it is seen by people day in and day out. People who pass by that area, who come, they also become landmarks. So, if you want to send, give directions to somebody, you say, "Come here." Then you take a turn from this whatever squirrel circle. There are so many things. So those become the focal areas visually. There are a lot of sculptures related to animals and birds. So it all started with the Genda sculpture. Then there is the lion sculpture, if you have noticed. There is the Chakli circle. Then there's a squirrel circle. I don't know whether you've seen that. And there is a bull sculpture at Fatehganj.
These metal animals are among the several sculptures placed within the traffic circles. As one travels from one point to another in the city, it feels like Vadodara had developed a culture of placing art pieces at traffic junctions. These sculptures were visualized and made by skilled artists for the city and its people.
Public art, the people don't have a choice not to see it. They're compelled to see it. And even if they're ugly, even if they're eyesores, the public are condemned to face it. ये क्या है? I ask you here, I know people always ask me, my friends, so it's not very easy for a common man to appreciate public art. So I think the imagination and curiosity of a common man should be triggered off in public art. Then they start appreciating it. Common people are always open to new ideas. I refuse to believe that ये नहीं आता है कॉमन लोग पसंद नहीं करेंगे इट्स नॉट एट ऑल ट्रू. कॉमन लोग पसंद करने लायक चीज़ उनको दे दो, वो पसंद करते हैं.
This question regarding the role of public art in cities, I think perhaps I would like to broaden this question a bit. Firstly, what is the idea of public itself in the city, and then perhaps we can understand what is public art as different people of the city. What is it that we share in common? So in some sense, the idea of art resides in this idea of the common. Baroda has had a history of fantastic public places. In fact, Baroda, as one of the princely cities, what it managed to do is create an idea of public that very few cities manage to do.
Perhaps the first example of a sculpture placed at a traffic point was this statue of Sayaji Rao Gaikwad, which is commonly known as Kala Ghoda. The statue was commissioned in 1907 to celebrate the silver jubilee of the king's reign. It was the people who demanded that the sculpture be placed within the city at a central location where they could look at it. It was placed opposite to the gateways of the central garden, Sayaji Bagh.
Sayaji Rao Gaikwad was inspired by, they say, the Hyde Park in London, when he proposed what we popularly call as the Kamati Bagh. It's truly a public place. If you look at the history of parks and gardens in most European cities, partially also true for Indian cities, many of these parks, and they were like, in Baroda we have the Sayaji Bagh as one of the examples. These are post-industrial examples where to address the ills of industrialization, nature is reintroduced in the city, and that is another place where we find art as being, the parks and gardens have that kind of a restive atmosphere where I can appreciate art. So Baroda was at the forefront of an attempt to create better public places, better public life, rather than just concentrate on buildings. So Baroda has had that huge tradition, and then of course, as part of the tradition of university education, college education in Baroda, you have a very important school in fine arts that comes up.
What we consider good is not good enough for people. People don't appreciate it. It happens. The sculptures which were appreciated by the fine arts people were not necessarily appreciated by the common people. They visit Kamati Bagh quite often. They see these statues very often, but they didn't have any specific affinity for it. There are some stories woven, like there is a boy with a dagger in his hand, and then it is believed that that boy saved Sayaji Rao from a tiger. So people appreciated that boy, not the sculpture, but the story. Young boy of Dhari. So the story matters. People like stories.
Until a few years ago, if you were to enter the city from the north, you would have been greeted by two tall sandstone pillars towering over you. The pillars connected with each other at the top, forming a structure resembling a gate. The gateway welcomed cars and buses that were driven down the road into the city of Vadodara.
It was called a Banyan Tree. but it hardly looked like a banyan tree. I think unless it wouldn't have been introduced as banyan tree, common people would not have recognized it as a banyan. Once they recognized that it is a banyan tree, they started appreciating it. Then they started discovering the elements of banyan trees. यहाँ इसमें roots भी दिखाई देते, इसमें पत्ते भी दिखाई देते. Then they discovered some birds in that. This discovery is very important. I think though it was quite a modernist kind of sculpture, it was appreciated by people.
In early 2015, the pillars were relocated to a relatively unfrequented region of the city. This was done because something even taller was being built over the road. Having large stone banyan trees in the form of a welcoming gateway at the entrance of Vadodara was rather symbolic. The symbolism becomes more evident if one observes the city itself. The name Vadodara is derived from the Sanskrit word Vatodar, which means at the center of the banyan tree. Several old banyan trees can be seen standing throughout the city. The tree is also well represented in wall paintings, symbols, logos, and recent architecture. If one were to question the impact or importance of public art, this representation could be an example of how mere brushstrokes on a wall or carvings on stone maintain a historic identity of the city. Much like what the banyan tree pillars still do to this day.
Public art is important in various ways. As you said, it also gives an identity to the city. Sometimes convenience takes a front seat, like particularly in the case of banyan trees. Because of that flyover, it was not possible to place that sculpture over there. But they could have found a better place where it could have commanded the same respect and same presence, which has not happened. One more sculpture which was liked by the people of Baroda was the Genda. The sheer visual impact of the sculpture. That Genda had tremendous impact.
कि उसमें कोई उसने फॉर्म को इस तरीके से उसके मसल दिख रहे हैं, उसके पुच्छी दिख रहे हैं, या कुछ नहीं, एक वो विजुअल जो उसका ये है, एंड वो जरूरत से ज्यादा ही ये है, बट वो गेंडा को ये करता है, उसका एनाटॉमी वगैरह से कुछ लेना देना में ये नहीं, बट वो गेंडा समझ में आता है कि वो गेंडा है.
People appreciate that also when they see a sculpture being built from a scrap. They normally try to recognize the original. कि ये देखो यहाँ पे नलका दिखाई दे रहा है, यहाँ पे ये दिखाई दे रहा है, and then they start understanding the construction of the form, the strength of rhino, the tremendous gusto of rhino was depicted so well in that sculpture that even a common man could appreciate it. I think we should not belittle the aesthetic sensibility of common people. They have it.
गेंडा शंकर जैसे नाम था ऐसा गेंडा था यहाँ पे. आपने तो शायद देखा भी नहीं होगा, पता नहीं ये लोगों ने किसको निकाल के बेच दिया, वो समझ नहीं. जो नाम है वो सही था और इधर गेंडा था पहले.
नीचे अभी भी वो लोहे का बना हुआ है ना गेंडा.
पहले अलग था.
अच्छा पब्लिक आर्ट तभी होगा जब लोग उसको रिलेट करेंगे एंड दे विल गिव देयर ओन नेम. मीन्स दोज सर्कल्स और दोज पब्लिक मीन्स आर्ट्स आर known by their own name, what public had given. Genda circle became Genda its own, means people started calling it Genda and it became Genda circle.
The word chakli in Gujarati means a small bird. The mosaic tile sculpture was tall enough that when faced by the common enemy it shared with the Genda, the flyover, Chakli circle was replaced by a smaller metal sculpture. There was also a wide space next to the circle where people would regularly feed birds. Today, both the feeding area and the circle itself are much smaller in size.
It was a very large circle because one could afford to have that large circle there. And especially in summer months, many times people either after dinner or something would just walk down and then sit there because the breeze in the evening or late night is quite nice over there. That proximity to the sculpture is also important because it allows you to have a kind of relationship with the sculpture. So if the sculpture is taken down, there's something which you feel about it, you know.
The abstract sculpture tangled in large green trees that was once said to give the riders of vehicles passing by an illusion of a flock of flying birds is now replaced by realistic metal sparrows sitting lifelessly still on their metal perch, overshadowed by the concrete roof. The sculpture at Rockstar Circle was not too large to obstruct the construction of the flyover, nor was the circle too wide for the growing traffic. However, it was replaced when it was put on trial and faced with an interesting judgment.
Place for art and artists. એવા શહેરમાં તમે અગલી ખરાબ દેખાવ આ સ્કલ્પચર્સ ઊભા કરી દેશો તો હાઉ ઇઝ ઇટ પોસિબલ? આ મેટલના ક્યાં ગંદા દેખાવાના જે આર્ટિસ્ટિક પણ નથી આવા સ્કલ્પચર્સ ઊભા કરી દીધા છે પણ કોઈ શહેરના લોકો બોલતા નથી.
The statement could be considered a personal opinion, but it was consequential enough to move the Rockstar sculpture to the sculpture park in the outskirts of the city. A new statue dedicated to yoga was placed at the circle, which perhaps represented our culture more truly.
लेकिन जब कोई चीज जैसे रॉक स्टार वहां हटाने का कोई मतलब नहीं था, वहां से वहां दूसरा एक स्कल्पचर लगाना था तो कहीं और लगा दो यार. मतलब उस अच्छे चीज को जो ऑलरेडी वहां का ये आइकॉनिक ये हो गया है, लैंडमार्क हो गया, उसको तुम हटा नहीं सकते. तुम जो नया चीज लगा रहे हो वो कहीं और लगा दो.
Once again, an abstract form of art was replaced by a realistic statue, an observation highlighting a trend that the evolution of public art in the city might be following, if it could even be called an evolution. Some might say that the Rockstar appears much happier existing in the sculpture park with other abstract metal artworks. The circle, however, is still called Rockstar Circle by people, but I wonder how long that would be so. There was no significant resistance to the changing cityscape. For the people of Vadodara, the construction of large flyovers that allow one to travel across in lesser time seemed to prevail over the art and identity that the city earlier held on to. However, along with the concrete flyovers now stretching across the city, a new type of public art came into being. As one moves within the city, they would see many walls, bridges, and trees that have been painted on. This is due to a recent effort taken by the municipality to decorate the city. Was this an effort to maintain the artistic identity of Vadodara despite the urban developments? Or is art truly something that can be ingrained into a culture?
Even a person staying in a juggi jopadi also hangs a calendar on the wall. It is a psychological requirement. And I think public art satiates that requirement that of a common man. He appreciates things. Otherwise, a common man would lose all interest for in beauty.
मीन्स कपड़ा पहनने से मतलब है तो कोई भी बिना कलर का कपड़ा पहन के व्हाइट कपड़ा पहन के घूम सकते हो ना। जूते तुम क्यों बार बार नए खरीदते हो, खाना क्यों तुम ये करते हो, क्योंकि तुम्हारा दिमाग को भी कुछ ये चाहिए, सेटिस्फैक्शन होना चाहिए, तुमको अच्छा लगना चाहिए। बड़ौदा में नहीं भी तो 5,000 आर्टिस्ट रहते होंगे, प्रैक्टिसिंग आर्टिस्ट, एंड दे आर एवरीबडी इज डूइंग समथिंग। तो ये 5,000 आर्टिस्ट का फायदा आराम से उठाया जा सकता। तो 4 जगह दीवार में पेंटिंग कर दिया तो कुछ होने जाने को नहीं है। हर एक दीवार कलरफुल होना चाहिए।
Change is inevitable. The several flyovers that now darken the city below, and the old iconic sculptures being replaced or overshadowed, painted a picture showing the priorities of the people of Vadodara.
Traffic islands, as they get more and more busy, I mean, really the artwork gets reduced to being practically nothing. This can work till the time the city is small. It can work till the time it is a slow pace of the traffic, but then you cannot really have an artwork of any importance if the size of the traffic island keeps reducing. Well, that's a pity. Perhaps we need to find new places for those art. So that's what I feel is the story of public art as far as Baroda is concerned. I think Baroda did a good job, to actually put them out there. It was brave of Baroda to do that.
Yeah.
But then the city is growing fast. What worked then will not work now.
The city I grew up in was gone, under layers of constructed conveniences. This bothered me the most.
बहुत शोर है बस बेबसी हर ओर है अंधेरे में नहाया
The traffic circles were bound to disappear as the traffic problem of the city grew. But were these flyovers the best solution for that problem? It is arguments like these that made me realize that my nostalgic grievance was rather naive, and that much like the requirement of art in public is often debated on, the impact and necessity of this rampant urban development could also be questioned.
थक गया तुम आओगे तो अब क्या
बनना चाहिए। मैं तो बोलता हूँ हर 4 रास्ते पे ब्रिज बनना चाहिए। अभी जिसको समझो अक्षर चौक जाना है, हाँ, तो अटल ब्रिज से डायरेक्ट निकल जाता है, नीचे कोई सिग्नल नहीं लगता है, ट्रैफिक नहीं लगता है, गाड़ी फटाफट निकल जाती है।
But I guess flyovers look very attractive to people. They feel this is development, right? And without realizing that it comes at what cost. In the sense that traffic circles are redundant. You don't need them if you have red lights. Larger issue that gets raised is that most Indian cities are not investing enough in public transportation. What is increasing is private modes of travel. And this whole idea that you keep widening roads so that more private vehicles, more cars, and more scooters can fly on it is an extremely dangerous practice. And when flyovers come up, so one is traffic is increased, the city is investing more in flyovers rather than they should be investing in buses. They should be investing in traffic management. So, we don't want to manage the traffic. We don't want to design our roads properly. Flyover is the crudest kind of a fix that we can do. I mean, there are huge amounts of study across the globe that says why we should not be making flyovers within the city center.
जैसे समझो हमको सवारी मिलती थी, तो घूम के जाते थे तो अच्छा पैसा मिलता था। जितने शॉर्टकट हो गया पब्लिक पैसा नहीं देती। पब्लिक के लिए फायदा हो गया, हमारे लिए लॉस है, बहुत टोटली लॉस।
I think the decisions are taken very hurriedly and not very thoughtfully. The corporation should have sought advice from the Department of Architecture, the Department of Town Planning, the Department of Fine Arts. They should have sought some advice from these agencies. The people who think that it is their privilege to decide the beauty of to define the beauty of this city, why would they consult us? They think that we interfere.
See, city is going to develop. हम बदल रहे हैं, लोग बदल रहे हैं, हमारे पास पैसे आ रहे हैं, हर एक घर में 2-4 कार होते हैं, तो रोड ये होगा, शहर बढ़ रहा है, आगे की ओर जा रहा है, बहुत ये हो रहा है। जहाँ ये सब होने की बात है, फिर आर्ट वगैरह, हाँ, क्योंकि लोग बढ़ रहे हैं, गाड़ी बढ़ रही है, तो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर वगैरह तो उनको बढ़ाना पड़ेगा, तो ही है, या तो मैनेज करना पड़ेगा। अच्छा, मान लो वो सब होने की वजह से आर्ट शिफ्ट हो रहा, बट उसको कहाँ शिफ्ट करना चाहिए?
Cities are spaces of aspiration, so they will always have their one eye in the future. But yet cities, good cities tend to have a sense of history, tend to have a sense as to where they're coming from. But you can't hold on to the whole city, can you? And you should not. So one would also have to leave some of the past and let it go with a heavy heart.
It is indeed with a heavy heart that I accept this new reality. The small town that I grew up in might not be called that anymore. I wonder what the city would look like 5 or 10 years later. Surely I will not be able to recognize it. But will there still be stone trees, scrap metal animals, paintings and symbols of banyan trees scattered around for eyes that look out for them? I suppose only time will tell. For now, I am flying over them.
छोटी जिंदगी पलती है, सड़कें बहुत तन्हा चलती है, सब चुप है, बहुत शोर है बस बेबसी हर ओर है सब चुप है बहुत शोर है बस बेबसी हर ओर है अंधेरे में नहाया शहर सुबह की राह देखते थक गया है सुबह की राह देखते थक गया है मैं थक गया तुम